Hi, my name is Sylvia. I'm passionate about languages, English in particular. Welcome to my world of English. Hi guys. Today I am coming to you with I hope, very interesting subject because I am going to answer an interesting question. The question that possibly you ask yourselves very often, because anybody who is studying English, they would like to know how to study the very language, how to be successful, how to make this process faster, more productive. And very often you ask yourselves, when will that stop? Do I already know the language? Can I already speak it with other people? The thing is that you can speak at any given moment in time. So you shouldn't wait for any particular moment because the rule is that if you know just 5 words in the language, you have to use them. So go to people, make interaction, talk to them. But of course, many of you wouldn't like to do it because many people are afraid of making mistakes. They are afraid of making fools of themselves. That's the true story. I tell you this, I teach you, I hope I managed to teach you this, that you shouldn't be afraid of the reaction of other people because what counts is communication and the effect. But what is this question? What is this question that possibly you ask yourselves very often and you don't know an answer to it? Because the question is, when can I say that I know a given word in English? You know that there are 2 most important elements of the language, something that you learn on a regular basis, and that will be grammar, which we all hate, and vocabulary. And today I'm going to focus on vocabulary because, and I will say it out loud, although I should be saying this rather silently, but I do believe and I think that there are many linguists here and many speakers of the language that would agree with me, because I do believe that indeed vocabulary is more important, because vocabulary helps you make interaction with people. It helps you communicate with people. So it is actually more important to know a word and say it rather than know the theory of the language and stay silent because you don't know words and you don't know how to make yourself understood. And there are various methods of studying words in English. Some of them we have described on our webpage. So I do encourage you to have a look and try one of these methods. They are really effective. But very often what I see is that studying English words is not successful. You are not successful with it. And very often you will stand in front of a mirror and pose the question, why are other people successful and I am not? And very often you produce the answer that it is because of the linguistic talent. And we have repeated that on numerous occasions, that there is no such thing as a talent, as a linguistic talent, linguistic gift. Of course, there are people who will be more prone to perform some activities. And it applies to all kinds of activities that we perform in our lives, be it dancing, be it cooking, be it driving a car, and be it speaking foreign languages. But all people, and I am sure of that, and I'm talking to you through this over 20 years of experience that I have teaching English, that all people can communicate in the language. And this is what we want. We want to communicate. We want to feel safe. We want to feel confident that when we go abroad or when the phone calls, we will be able to say a couple of words and we will be able to make the conversation. So let me repeat that. There is no such thing as this linguistic talent. You can communicate with other people, but you need to know how to study the words. You need to know when the study of a given word finishes, and you need to know that this process is very structured. So now I'm going to present to you a checklist that I hope you will use every single time you study a word, a phrase, an expression, idiomatic expression, because it will help you. And then you will check for yourselves if everything is there. So if there is a given word that you learned, that you found out about, that you heard in a podcast, in any broadcast that a teacher told you, whatever the situation, you need to know how to write this word. You need to know how to say it. You need to know how to translate it. You need to know how to spell it. And last but not least, I'm putting it as the last point on the list, but it is the most important thing. You need to know how to use it in context. When it comes to the first thing from the checklist, I mean, how to write the word, it is obvious because we know that we write words in English in a different way than we write them in Polish. It is a natural thing. And the mistakes will occur, the mistakes will be there. But mind you, there is some positive piece of information. I think that writing words in Polish is actually more difficult because we have these strange sounds. And in English, the words, very often they are short, so the writing shouldn't be that difficult. So if you are taking part in a course where you study the words through speaking, and this is the best way, of course, there has to be some time that you will sit down and you will write the word with your hand. Of course, it can be handwritten. It should be handwritten. And this is the most preferable way of doing it, to write it with your hand. But if there is no such possibility, of course, you can type it on a laptop, on a computer, on your phone, but you have to do it. You have to write it. Another thing that I mentioned here is saying it out loud. So if you rely on this method only, that you see a word and you read it, so to say, in your mind, you read it silently, you are fooling yourselves, because your ears have to get used to your voice. They have to get used to the way you pronounce the word. The muscles of your face have to make this effort. It's a physical effort. And I guarantee you this, that if you pronounce a word that you don't know, that is new to you, and if you pronounce it for the first time, for the second time, you will have this feeling that it's strange, and you will sound strange to yourself. You will get this immediate feeling that it doesn't sound natural, but it is okay. It is all right. This is how it is. You have to train it. Your ears have to accept that. And believe me, the way you pronounce words in English, the way you hear it, it is a different way what I hear when I listen to you. So your brain will play tricks on you, and your brain will tell you that it doesn't sound good. And of course, your brain will tell you, hey, just stop this, don't do it anymore. Maybe you will take a break. It's a natural feeling, but you cannot stop. You have to practice, so you have to say it. The third point on the list that I mentioned, it is the spelling, and or the fourth, never mind, but it is important. The spelling thing is important because there can be a situation in life when somebody asks you to spell a word. Most often we will be asked to spell a word, to spell our names, surnames, addresses of our emails. But it can happen that you will be talking to a person who is a non-native speaker of English, and they will maybe not understand the word. So you have to be ready to spell it. Teaching spelling, studying spelling, learning spelling is an easy thing, really, because there are just a few sounds that are more difficult, more problematic. And if you train it with spelling, most preferably your name, you will find it easy after some time, and it'll come natural to you that you will spell other words in the language. And in this way, of course, you will also learn the sounds, because language is music, not grammar, not books. It is music, something that you have to hear and that you have to be ready to repeat. I mentioned translation also, and translation is indeed important. And I will make a point here. I hear that oftentimes that people think, they believe, students of English believe that if they can translate a word to me, so there is an English word and they can translate it into Polish, or vice versa, there is a word in Polish and they can translate it into English, and they say, okay, so I know the word. That is not true. Our brains like pairs. So what the brain will do, of course, the brain will remember the translation. And again, you will fall prey to this thinking, to this myth, to this fallacy that you know a word because you can translate it. But just imagine the situation that you are stressed because you have to say something in English, and speaking is stressful for everybody. I repeat that. It is a completely normal situation. We need to know how to play with this stress, how to deal with it, how to make it our advantage even. So if you are stressed, you tend to panic. Again, a completely normal reaction of the brain, of the body. And the brain naturally will look for the easiest solutions. And the easiest solution that you have there is this pair, Polish and English translation. But imagine the situation that you have to talk to some other person, that you have to speak to them. And the only thing that you have in your mind, in your brain, the only thing that you can reach to is this Polish-English translation. But you are talking to a Spaniard, you are talking to a Frenchman, you are talking to a German. They don't know Polish. So this way of thinking about learning words and learning a language is very non-productive. Because if you just rely on this thing, you will prove to yourself that indeed you cannot speak the language because you want to say something to a person that doesn't speak Polish through English and you don't know how to do it. So the super last thing that you have to train, that you have to do, is you have to take this word in English and put it in context every single time. There is no other way, because the context will also teach your brain the pair, the collection of words. But in this way, if you are stressed and you have to perform some speech, some sentence in English, you will be ready to reach for the English collection of words, not Polish English, but English. So then you have a greater chance of producing a good sentence, of entering communication in English. If I may, I will come back to this translation thing for a sec. And why is translation also important? Because, and here there is a pause for reaction, because it may be surprising. I'm joking here, of course, but we have to also be aware of the thing that English and Polish, they are completely different systems of the language. So naturally, as you start studying the language, or even later on, because this is the mistake, you rely very much on the Polish language. But if you want to speak English, you have to stop this. You have to detach yourself from the Polish language. But at the same time, you have to be aware of these differences. And I will give you this example of learning phrases. I say it every time, that if you have some word in English, you have to learn the whole collection of words. So not just the word, but you have to add a verb to it or a preposition to it, because in Polish, we will use a completely different structure. And it is very much visible when we think about a word plus preposition, because in English, oftentimes we have prepositions, and in Polish, we don't have them. The most common examples are listened to. So we listen to music, we listen to a podcast in English, but in Polish, there is no preposition. And vice versa. In Polish, as we want to call somebody, we use a preposition. In English, there is no preposition. And this cliche thinking that you copy Polish into English, it is visible many times. But you have to be aware that these systems are different. And this awareness makes your studying more, more effective. I think that the statement that I would like to make today, and what I'm going to say just in a second, is something that you should bear in mind, you should repeat, and you should rely on very much. I mean, the statement is that words, vocabulary, it is a key to communication. It equals communication. Grammar is just a tool. And don't get me wrong, I myself as a linguist, as a speaker of English, as a teacher of English, I will never stop you from studying grammar, because grammar is important. We want to be proficient speakers of English. We don't want to speak forever with simple words and very basic grammar. But I want you to change the way you think about studying English. And if you think about this checklist, if you think about this standard, structured way of studying English, you need to know that the word will always come first. And as we come back to the way that we study our mother tongues, we did exactly the same thing. Children always start with words, and the words that they start with, it is the verbs, because verbs are the center of communication. This is the hub of communication. In the verb, you convey the whole information. You say what you want to get, what you want to drink, what you want to do, where you want to go. This is how we acquire a language. So the word will always come first. But after some time, of course, we want to learn grammar. Of course, we want to sound academic. Of course, we want to sound professional. But in your minds, in this structure of studying English, words will always come first. And that's why it is so important to follow a certain path. And let me repeat it once again. So there's the checklist once again, and the checklist is as follows. So if you want to check, if you want to be sure that you know a given word in English, you have to know how to write it, you have to know how to spell it, you have to know how to translate it, you have to know how to say it. And last but not least, you have to know how to use it in context. So you will take a word, you will put it in a sentence, and you will say it out loud. If you don't do it out loud, I mean, if you don't say it out loud, you will fall into this misconception, into this false thinking that it is enough. And that's why very often what you complain about is that you have all these gadgets, you have all these applications, and you perform some revisions of the words through clicking on the phone or through clicking on the screen of your computer, of your laptop. And I always say, this is not speaking the language, this clicking. Then you say, well, I have covered so many exercises. And I say, this is not speaking, this is filling out gaps in the exercise. So clicking the screen of your smartphone is a myth, is a misconception, is building this wrong image. And the applications, the ebooks, the books, all the gadgets that are there, they are very, very important, but they should only be a thing that adds to your studying process, because the key thing is speaking, mechanical speaking, repeating, using the words, entering conversations, relations with other people. And I will here make another general comment as it refers to speaking the language, because the subject of this episode is how to be aware, how to know, how to say that I know a given word. But I will make this general comment that studying a language, it is English, of course, it applies to English, but it can be any other language. Studying a language is entering relations with other people. Studying is performed through emotions rather than through books. So books, gadgets, applications, ebooks, they are a thing that adds to the process, and it is great if you have it. It is great if you do it. But this is not the center of studying. And the last thing that I would like to present to you, something that works also very well, is recording yourselves. What you say. Technology today is, at hand, so you can do it very easily with your smartphone. And if you do it, you will see, you will hear how people, as they talk to you in English, how they hear you. You will hear how you pronounce words. You will check if what you say, if the muscles on your face, if they work properly, if you make yourself easy to understand. And with these all steps, you will make studying English successful. You'll make studying English productive, because on the one hand, this process is complicated or complex, but on the other hand, it is so simple because it is all based on repetition, sometimes mechanical repetition, on revision, and on the training of your brain how to use the words that you already know. I hope with this knowledge, studying of words of vocabulary in English now will become a very easy thing for you. And this is what I am wishing you from the bottom of my heart.